afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday edition of WindowsWear Live, where we're going to be talking about retail news that's going on this week. If you have any questions, feel free to ask on any of our social media platforms. Instagram Live, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, or if you're tuned into our Zoom. Welcome. Let's go ahead and get started with this week's retail news. So we're starting over with the Dover Street Market. So for those not familiar, Dover Street Market is a marketplace that opened in London, sort of like a flea market for luxury brands, right? It's a very experimental space, a very immersive space in which a permanent pop-up, even though that is a bit of an oxymoron, that's exactly what Dover Street is, right? It was so successful that they've also opened one in New York City. And part of the lure of Dover Street Market is that it changes over seasonally. So not only does the inventory for the luxury houses change over, but so does the thematic elements of the space in and of itself. So we're starting to see as more and more retail spaces are opening this fall, or as summer ends and we're going into fall, as the sort of pandemic is hopefully waning, we're starting to see a lot of spaces reemerge and reopen. Dover Street has decided to make over, and let's take a look at what they're currently working with. So they do this twice a year. Twice a year, Dover Street rebuilds their concept. They completely refurbish everything in their interior space. This allows obviously for, fresh innovation of installations, and it accompanies all of the newest collections from the designers that they house. This past Saturday, the Dover Street Market in London opened its doors for its autumn-winter swap over, welcoming people to come inside and explore. So when you walked through the space initially, you were greeted by Comme des Garçons installation, in which we saw a lot of sort of sculptural concoctions shielded under this steel umbrella structure. Every different space or a different design space or pop-up space, if you will, gets to envision what they want their space to look like. So this is kind of fun because, like I said, it is permanent. However, there is a lot of flexibility with what you can build out. So Dover Street Market is a really interesting kind of experiment in the pop-up universe and in brand creativity, and how can you take a space that is not exactly a classic brick and mortar experience, but still translate that to be true to your brand's DNA, but also fun and innovative. So here we see some great examples of some of the brands that have interpreted their spaces in the Dover Street Market. This is the London space, I should mention. Here is Balenciaga's pop-up space. We have the CDG, the Comme des Garçons men's collection, and this is very fun and unique. The last thing I think that a luxury house would think of in terms of glamour would be something like a porta potty. But what's fun about that is that it gives CDG this edge and this level of playfulness, right? It sort of feels like you're at a Coachella or a music festival. It feels glamorous, even though that is the least glamorous thing I can think of in the world. So really playing with the elements of highbrow and lowbrow and kitsch and luxury. Very, very smartly done. Here we have Jill Saunders. Super minimal collections. So the architecture, the lighting, everything amplifies that with being very minimal, very structural. Maison Margiela. Simone Roca, choosing to utilize a lot of plexiglass, a lot of elements of being able to see through things, almost feeling like an art gallery as opposed to a retail space. Craig Green, giving us a lot of steel and aluminum structures, very industrial, very masculine for their clothing. Then we have Loewe. And a couple of more examples. Doublet has their own dedicated space. They're new to the Dover Street Market. They created their own mock-up sushi restaurant, which comes with its very own anime waitress. Again, sort of proving that, fusing the idea of hospitality with retail, but also being very playful in its approach to selling their products. And we also have Dover Street Market exclusive styles from both Gucci and Molly Godard. So this is also a space to create collaborative moments, right? So if you have a particular capsule collection that you're working on that you want to be exclusive to certain locations, the Dover Street Market has been very smart with their sort of captivating their audience and creating something experimental but fun, and people really want to go to the Dover Street Market to get unique capsule pieces or perhaps exclusive collections from designers that are only available, through the designer's site or a trunk show or the Dover Street Market. Let's move on to take a look at what's going on over at Louis Vuitton. So Louis Vuitton is getting in touch with their crafty side with their new pop-up at Harrods. So Harrods in London is now open, and Louis Vuitton has launched this past weekend a brand new pop-up inside of Harrods, and they're using what they call their crafty collection, which lets your mind sort of run free, right? It's this bold rendition of what we know as, of course, the classic Louis Vuitton monogram. So here we see it. The Louis Vuitton monogram, of course, is their sort of signature. It is their calling card. But in this space, you see a lot of splash of color. You see selective use of the monogram and the quadrifoil that Louis Vuitton is known for. But the entire space has this kind of arts and crafts makeover without being, lowbrow, right? It still feels luxurious. It still feels like Louis Vuitton. Including all of their leather goods. They come in these sort of really fun expressive prints that are inspired by graffiti art and what they're calling neo-expressionism. Inside of the Harrods space, the walls, you can see that they are pop-up. They're red and white. The monograms are across all of the surfaces. They even have these interactive screens that align with the walls, so you're able to sort of customize your Louis Vuitton products. Here you can see the space from inside of Harrods up through the escalator, and the space is open now until December. It will undergo 3 different changeovers to spotlight different capsule collections that Louis Vuitton is choosing to focus on for each season. So this will be on view for the next, 4 or 5 months until December, in which you can visit and, of course, purchase different capsule collections. I personally love when a luxury brand takes a very vintage approach to building something out, right? Oftentimes brands look toward the future and they think that means technology, right? They think that means some form of, digital interaction with a consumer, but sometimes it can be just old-fashioned arts and crafts gone right? Something that's very classic in its approach can work just as well as an app or gamifying a consumer experience. Let's move on over to Adidas. So the Adidas Superstar celebrates their anniversary, and they created this fantastic window collaboration. Of course, the Adidas Superstar is known to be the official shoe of Adidas. I think, before you even see their Adidas logo, you see those 3 stripes on that sneaker and you instantly know what shoe that is and what brand that is. So to celebrate that iconic anniversary, they've created this very fun, very innovative window installation, and they've built this out. This particular installation is for Acid House Barcelona, and it marks the start of this kind of transition, right, back into becoming a little more normal, particularly in Spain, where the COVID crisis hit quite strongly very early on. Spain is actually in the current midst of their second wave. So, brands want to be very trepidatious as to how they're going to open. And when they do open, they really want something memorable that's going to excite people and bring them into the space. So this year, Adidas has a campaign called Change is a Team Sport. And for this campaign, they are, of course, celebrating 5 decades since the inception of the Superstar sneaker. And the Superstar sneaker is, to me, it is synonymous with streetwear, right? It has been that. I've been wearing Adidas since I was a kid. I still wear the Superstar 3-stripe Adidas, right? They're kind of like the iconic essential sneaker. And for this celebration, they've collaborated with different creators, different athletes, staying true to the sort of Superstar's unrivaled heritage, right? It's all about the heritage of the shoe for this campaign. Situated, what makes this particular campaign very unique is that here you can see these shoes are actually floating in the window. So in this video, that is not a trick of the imagination. They have actually magnetized the shoe to make it seamlessly float, right? So in this Acid House Barcelona, this is what they consider their creative hub. They've used this award-winning technology to balance different magnetic forces to create the effect where the Superstar product appears to be floating in space. So this is the first time I've ever seen something like this utilized in this way. I think it's really playful. It's just like Louis Vuitton with the arts and crafts idea. It's utilizing a very basic principle, right? The idea of magnets and magnetizing something, but using it in a very unique and creative way. Very, very smart creation by Adidas. Moving on let's move on to Virgil Abloh and his new Off-White store. So in the Miami Design District, a new Off-White store has opened. We're starting to see a lot of spaces reopening, or spaces that may have launched earlier in the spring or earlier in the season are now having their big openings or reopenings, welcoming customers back into their spaces. In this case, this is supposed to be much more than just a clothing store. The space was created to be a fulfillment center and a multi-purpose events venue. We're seeing this more and more often. I think people are they expect more than a store when they walk in. They want to be entertained. They want to have an experience, right? And in order to incentivize customers to get off their, computers or their phones and leave the e-commerce shopping sites that they're so comfortable with, they do have to create these unique experiences. And I think this is a really fun one that's been done by Virgil Abloh and Off-White. The entire space consists of a venue for talks, runway shows, music, and art events, including anything like Art Basel, which has taken over. Art Basel used to be this very, if you're not familiar, very reputable sort of art weekend or festival in Miami, and it has now exploded into this sort of retail festival, right? So not only is it about the art, it's about the business, it's about the celebration of brands, and this space would be a perfect example of what will be used during something like Art Basel. It does feature 2 stories, and a lot of the building features are very minimalistic, right? You see opaque polycarbonate being used on the wall, on the ground floor. The ground floor can be pushed back. They have a polybicarbonate wall, which can be pushed back so that space can then be opened up, reducing the amount of storage, but then bringing the outdoors to the front. So this is how they create that idea of a performance space. Inside, it's very sparse, and it channels that sort of interior design of a fulfillment center. It's not supposed to feel like a store. It's supposed to feel other, right? It's supposed to feel like a space that can be used for anything, a venue for performance, a venue for art, a venue for gathering, a community space. And more often than not, we're starting to see a lot of community outreaches, particularly from brands that are led by people of color, and the BIPOC community, because there's a huge outreach right now in terms of the revolutionizing and the pushing of Black voices in our community. So this is fantastic to start opening your doors and saying, we're not just here to sell you expensive clothing and valuable bags and garments. We really do want to create a community. Moving on to Timberland. So Timberland has earned all kinds of accolades for their new purpose-led store environment. And Timberland is a brand that has always been known worldwide for, first of all, for its iconic boot design, right? But its sustainability leadership, right? They were always on the forefront of leading the conversation in sustainability. Them and Patagonia, I think, do a very good job of always pushing that as their mission and their ethos. And last winter, Timberland unveiled its new purpose-led place store environment in select cities. We have them right here in New York City. They also opened them in London, in Philadelphia, and in Shanghai. And the retail industry, I think, has really taken notice of this, right? Taken notice of how they are doing business, how they are putting their money where their mouth is. And these new purpose-led store environments immerse visitors in their brand's creative vision, right? And that's really what a store experience should do. It's not just about walking in and being transactional, purchasing something, right? At the end of the day, you should see the creative vision of that space. You should see, the mission statement of that brand, who they are, and a good retail and brick and mortar experience will do that. And for Timberland, it's all about their Nature Needs Heroes campaign. They have this long-standing passion for nature and this energy for fashion to create something really distinctive in that market space and in the space of environmental consciousness. Within the store, you can see that the brand's latest footwear and apparel collections sit amongst living trees. Nothing in these spaces is going to be fake or synthetic. So everything is living, full height of a green wall with all living shrubbery and plants. And it tells a powerful story, right, of eco-innovation, right? This shines a spotlight on something that Timberland has been doing for a very long time and showcases their commitment to a greener future, right? And they've basically done 3 of the most critical elements that are successful for any retail space with this campaign, right? It's a commitment to excellence in design, originality in their use of space and materials, and a fantastic quality of the concept execution, right? Because you can have all kinds of fantastic ideas, but if you don't execute them properly, they sort of just remain ideas. Particularly, so over the course of the next couple of years, Timberland plans to open or remodel multiple stores across North America and Europe with this purpose-led environment in mind. So while we have the Timberland Sustainable pop-up in New York City, these are going to be popping up around the world for their stores to match their new sort of efforts that they are working toward. All right, let's take a look at some of our member profiles and see what some of our members are currently working on. Over at Expor Mannequins out of Brazil, they are, here is a project that they are working on that they have put mannequins together for a brand called Mescla. Over at Quattrobi Lighting has built a beautiful light concept for John Barrett. Harlequin Design is currently working or has worked on a collaboration between Barber and Selfridges for their Reloved campaign. Over at Paula Johnson Flint, they have built out a beautiful green sequined wall for Wicked. So they've done all the signage for the musical Broadway show Wicked over at the Apollo Theater in Victoria, London. And finally, at Edinburgh Retail Projects is proud to announce their iconic brand experience in honor of the launch of Vans and Maha. Let's take a look at their video that they've gone ahead and posted on the collaboration that they've worked on. Fantastic work by Edinburgh Retail Projects, and congratulations to everyone who worked on their projects and who have updated their profiles. That does it for us for this week's installment of WindowsWear Live for our Tuesday edition of retail news. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask in any of our chat features. We will see you next Tuesday for another round of WindowsWear Live on Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining.